Today, we're going to talk about the implications of most of Donald Trump's own former cabinet members refusing to endorse him, and I interview Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett about the disastrous Robert Hur testimony that proved he lied about Joe Biden, whether the Biden impeachment effort is officially dead, and her thoughts on Katie Britt's humiliating State of the Union response. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. Now, just days ago, Mike Pence was asked whether he would endorse Donald Trump, and this is what he said.
Let me ask you this. We have not spoken since former President Trump sewed up the nomination, which he did earlier this week. And he has received endorsements from some of the people who were running against him, but we have not heard from you. Will you be endorsing your former president? You were on the ticket with him last time around.
Well, Martha, I appreciate the question. And it should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year. Look, I'm incredibly proud of the record of our administration. It was a conservative record that made America more prosperous, more secure, and saw conservatives appointed to our course in a more peaceful world. But that being said, during my presidential campaign, I made it clear that there were profound differences between me and President Trump on a range of issues, and not just our difference on my constitutional duties that I exercised on January the 6th. I mean, as I have watched his candidacy unfold, I've seen him walking away from our commitment to confronting the national debt. I've seen him starting to shy away from a commitment to the sanctity of human life. And this last week, his reversal on getting tough on China and supporting our administration's effort to force a sale of ByteDance TikTok.
Why do you think he did that? Why do you think he had that reversal on that before we go, sir?
Well, I can't speculate on it, but what I can tell you is that in each of these cases, Donald Trump is pursuing and articulating an agenda that is at odds with the conservative agenda that we governed on during our 4 years. And that's why I cannot, in good conscience, endorse Donald Trump in this campaign.
And I know it might not seem shocking that the guy who Trump tried to have hanged would ultimately choose not to endorse him, but I'd argue that it is quite significant for two reasons. First, virtually all of Donald Trump's former cabinet members and aides and officials have come out against him. I'm talking Mike Pence, John Kelly, John Bolton, Bill Barr, Mark Milley, Rex Tillerson, Mick Mulvaney, Chris Christie, H.R. McMaster, Anthony Scaramucci, Stephanie Grisham, Richard Spencer, Tom Bossert, Michael Cohen, Ty Cobb, Alyssa Farah Griffin, Sarah Matthews, Cassidy Hutchinson, James Mattis, and Mark Esper. Esper just came out this past week and said that when Donald Trump was president, he wanted the U.S. military to kill Americans. And so, if these people, the people who knew Donald Trump best, who worked most closely with him, if they've come out against Trump, then maybe that's something worth listening to, and something that a number of Republican voters will listen to. Which is not to say, by the way, that Mike Pence is some electoral juggernaut, but the fact that Trump's own vice president won't endorse him will still have an impact on the margins, in the same way that Nikki Haley's refusal to endorse him thus far will have an impact on the margins. And not for nothing, but the margins is where these elections are won. This is not a game of miles, it's a game of inches. Remember, Biden beat Trump in Georgia by only 12,000 votes, in Wisconsin by only 20,000 votes. These are razor-thin margins, and so for Trump to lose these influential figures, that's not going to help him retain even those Republicans, much less expand his base out to independents and Democrats like he would need. So that's the first reason. Second, and more broadly, Trump derives his strength from the optics that he's got total control over his party. That's how any autocrat derives power. But when the dam starts to break and suddenly it becomes clear that not only does Trump not have total control, he doesn't even have control of the people who work the closest with him or his own Republican base, then the appeal of Donald Trump as this invisible force begins to wear off. Not only does the reality begin to dawn on the GOP that Trump isn't unbeatable when it comes to Joe Biden, which, by the way, should already be debunked considering Biden beat him in 2020, but it gets that much worse for him when you realize that he's not even able to get his own party. He's losing his own officials and aides. He lost his own vice president. Talk about piercing the bubble. Now, with that said, the usual caveats apply. It really doesn't matter if Trump loses the endorsement of every Republican official in the entire country. Our job doesn't change. We still organize, we still stay engaged, we still work on our circles of people. Do not look at the polls or the primary results or endorsements or the rallies. None of it matters. It's all noise, and it's mostly cherry-picked by the media to sell whatever narrative they want to sell, which is generally the one that'll show the most drama, because for them, politics is a big game. It's just sports. Like, they don't seem to realize that we all fail if democracy fails. We're all on this plane together, and if the plane goes down, we all die. So ignore the horse race coverage and just do the work, because we know what Donald Trump's own officials have already made clear, that he shouldn't be anywhere near the Oval Office again. Here's a preview of my interview with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Robert Hur was the U.S. attorney appointed to investigate Joe Biden over his retention of classified documents, which, by the way, for those watching and listening right now, is not the equivalent of Trump's, because Joe Biden cooperated with the National Archives, whereas Donald Trump ignored a request and ignored a subpoena and ultimately forced a magistrate judge to approve a search warrant that was executed by the FBI at Mar-a-Lago. What was your reaction to the revelation that he lied about Biden's memory, even suggesting that he didn't remember the date that his own son died, which the transcript now shows that he remembered perfectly?
I mean, I wasn't surprised. I think the American people had a great opportunity to assess whether or not we have a senile, old, feeble man in the White House when he gave his State of the Union address. I think that the president reminded the American people that he is the strong guy that made sure that he course corrected as Trump was basically leading us into a death trap as it relates to COVID-19. For whatever reason, people forget how many people were dying before Joe Biden came into office and made sure that we could get shots in arms and save lives. Instead, that party continues to push disinformation around things such as the vaccine. We were able to finally get our economy back on track. In fact, we have reeled back in a way that no other country has been able to recover since COVID-19. Is there still more work to do? Absolutely. But are we leading the world? We are. And that's who we're supposed to be. Watching her testify was quite skin crawling to me personally. I did not care for his report. On the day that his report came out, we were actually at our DEM Issues conference. And I got an alert that the report came out, and then the president came on stage and gave some remarks to us. And then he laid out that this report came out, and it was made clear that he disagreed with some of the things in the report. And so, we went out as Democrats, and I felt like we were on the defense trying to say he's not senile and old and feeble.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, I think that people saw for themselves, though.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, even, this is the second State of the Union now where that has been put on full display. And I think Republicans really revel in Americans not seeing him as frequently, because every day that we're not seeing him make some big speech like the State of the Union was, that vacuum is then filled with the same narrative that he doesn't know what day it is. He doesn't know how to tie his shoes. But then it's completely undermined the second that we see this guy come out and do what he did at the State of the Union, which was, to not only deliver a home run of a speech, but then even challenge Republicans in numerous occasions, and at least, to their mild credit, learned their lesson from last year in terms of not trying to heckle him too hard because they got embarrassed the first time.
Everyone except for Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course.
Yeah,
she will never learn. She will never learn. And I just want to say, to the point about the vacuum, this isn't a president who will be known for his speaking ability. This is not President Obama. People forget that the president actually has a stutter. I think it was so beautiful that this week, it was kind of a reminder as he was talking to another kiddo that stutters, and there is no magic pill that you take for stuttering. So as he makes gaffes, as they're frequently called, I don't look at them as gaffes. I look at it as this man has a speaking impediment that he has worked his entire life to overcome, and people forget that. And so speaking isn't necessarily what he will be known for, but getting things done for the American people, now that is what he'll go down in the history books for being able to do.
Yeah, well said. Also, I would rather have a president who has a stutter than one who thinks that World War II hasn't happened yet, or that the current president is Barack Obama, or that you need ID to buy bread, or that you can
don't remember who your ex-wife is. What is happening?
Your ex-wife is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Or that you could stop a hurricane with a Sharpie, or that the list goes on and on.
Yes, or just inject yourself with bleach and you won't have COVID anymore. You won't have a lot of stuff, such as a life. But nevertheless.
Nevertheless, do you think it was a mistake for Merrick Garland to allow a partisan Republican U.S. attorney to oversee an investigation into Joe Biden that would ultimately give him a platform to land a really damaging attack against him?
I think that there are those of us of my political generation, and then there are those of us, say, of Merrick Garland's and President Biden's political generation. The people that believe that certain things are black and white, and those of us in my generation understand that it's just a bunch of games that are being played nowadays. And so I think that Merrick Garland leans into the old school frame of thought, like, hey, this is clear, like he can do this, he'll be fair. And ultimately he was fair. Now, did he add a little extra? Absolutely. But did he go so far as to charge the president? No. And ultimately, while he landed the jabs that he landed, I think that it is going to be very helpful, not that it really matters to the MAGA crowd, that this was another Republican. This wasn't a Democrat. So you can't say the fix was in. This was one of your guys, right? But they always say the fix is in. Even when you look at the prosecution in Georgia, they say the fix is in Georgia, forgetting that the people that have pled guilty thus far are Trump's people. They're Republicans. These aren't Democrats making up stuff. So, I mean, trying to do something that will make sense to a cult-like mind is problematic to me. Like, just forget it. Just make sure you get someone who's going to do right. And I think a Democratic appointee probably would have been better under the circumstances.
Yeah, I feel like we do have to get better at recognizing like the dangerous situations we put ourselves in by constantly offering up goodwill to partisan Republicans who will then, use that as a cudgel to wield against Democrats. And kind of we don't learn our lesson, and we do this a lot. And so I think that like recognizing what the dangers could be beforehand by, appointing a partisan Republican U.S. attorney to be able to release a report unvetted about Joe Biden might not be such a great idea, especially in an election year, especially knowing the disinformation media machine that operates on the right and how anything in that report could be kind of twisted on its face and used against Democrats. And we've seen them manipulate these reports in the past. The Bill Barr summary of the Mueller report was the exact same thing, where in certain instances it said the polar opposite of what the Mueller report actually said. To watch the full interview with Jasmine Crockett, click the thumbnail right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. You can also click the link on the screen to check out the audio version of this podcast. And of course, to see more of my content, the subscribe button's on the screen as well.